All right, so I'm Todd Atkins, and I'm here with Faine Mesquita, and it's the Todd Atkins Show. And Faine, I want to thank you for taking time to do this with me. And the reason this fight, I kind of want to get in this fight with Danielle Curtis. The reason this came as interest to me is I have a friend in Australia, Justin Lawrence. I've known him for over 20 years, and he had reached out to me and he said, "There's a fight coming up. And it's interesting for a couple of reasons. Both competitors have already accomplished, championships. They've already accomplished, a lot already. And there's kind of this IMMAF gamma, maybe rivalry sort of attached to the fight as well." And he was also saying in women's MMA, you could argue that this fight may be two competitors in a debut match. There may not have been two more accomplished competitors in a debut fight. Do you agree with that?
I would say so. In first place, thank you for having me. Yes, I would say so in terms of for a debut, I was the first person in Australia senior to get a gold medal in IMMAF. So as an amateur, you couldn't go higher than that, Gamma, same thing. And she got all their belts as well previously. So in terms of an amateur career, what else could you expect for? So yeah, I reckon I was the top ranked amateur flyweight. She was probably the second or third. So yeah, it seemed to make complete sense to me.
Now let me ask you this: why do you think the two of you were matched up first?
First, look, I
for
didn't
a pro
even
debut.
Oh, for a debut. I didn't even knew about this Gamma IMMAF rivalry. All I knew is that last year, for instance, the reason why I went to IMMAF for the second year in a row, I was not even that keen, to be honest, is because I couldn't find a fight here in Australia. Pretty much everybody who fought last year in flyweight said no to fighting me after my fight in September. And I reckon Danielle was also having the same struggle. And like I said, we're just ready to move to our pro careers. It was happening pretty much at the same time, and we had similar experiences. So I reckon the promoter thought it would be a good match.
Now, I want to ask you about this IMF Gamma rivalry. I know you didn't really necessarily know about it, but did you feel any of that going into the fight, having to represent for IMF?
Look, not really, because they didn't even reach out to me. And Danielle is someone that I also have been following, at least online, her career for a couple of years at least. So it was just something else that she accomplished and something that I accomplished, and I didn't see that was I didn't feel rivalry anyway. She seemed to be a lovely person as well, so I couldn't feel there was something behind it, and especially because the promotions the organizers, they were not backing us up or promoting this as the clash of the world champions. No one ever mentioned that to me, so for me it was just another fight.
That's interesting. So, because my friend was saying, he talked to me for a long time about this, and he made it seem like maybe there was more to this match than you're indicating. But that maybe it doesn't surprise me because you're the competitor in the fight.
Yeah. Also, I was not following that. I didn't need to be sold the fight, so because I was already in the fight. So maybe that would be a way to talk about it, and maybe that's what happened for other people. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest.
Now, as their champion, like you mentioned, they weren't really saying, like you said, they didn't reach out to you or say you need to win for us or anything like that. It wasn't like that at all.
No.
Okay, that's interesting. Let me ask you this. So, how much did you know about Danielle going into the fight?
I knew that she was fighting like for longer than me. What else? She also fought one of my, let's say, extended teammates back a few years back. And yeah, I also heard that she was like actually dropping to flyweight. And yeah, that's pretty much what I knew.
And, you know, when you're preparing for it, were you preparing with Coach Sabotis for the fight the entire time?
I learned about the fight probably like 3 months prior. So that would be, let me see, like, yeah, it was probably like very early May or late April. So yeah, I didn't have anything booked in the months following IMMAF. So yeah, I started preparing. I like to prepare like with some time in advance. So that's pretty much what I did.
Now, how the fight went, you know, it seemed like you kind of went through the fight and it went about as good as you could have hoped. Maybe tell me about your thoughts on the fight.
I know that it's probably going to seem like very similar to other things, to other fights that I had previously, but it does change a little bit depending on the fighter that you are fighting. Like for instance, I knew that you would kick a lot, much more than other opponents that I did. So we probably we maybe ended the same way, but we started like grabbing the kick. That's not something that I normally do all the time. So yeah, so I think that was one of the things, like I had time to know who was my opponent. I had time to watch her fights, because previously I had a tournament like 4 days back to back. So I would have to do like whatever, you know, I would have to go with the flow. So I think that was one of the main differences for me. I could visualize much more. I could be prepared for much more. That's why the fight went the way it went.
Now, how much time do you spend watching as you prepare?
I myself watched it like only once, and not even all the fights. I definitely watched the fight that she had like 4 weeks prior. And then my coach is like, I'm not sure. But yeah, I like to watch. I like to see what's coming. Doesn't make me feel nervous or anything like that. And yeah, it's good for me to visualize, to have an idea of like how they look like in the cage, their size, all this type of stuff.
Now, the fight, like I said, it kind of went about as good as you could have hoped. Having the fight go that way, like, you know, with this fight built up the way it was, what was your feelings after?
What can I say? Well, I was preparing for so long, so it's very rewarding to like when things they go according to the plan. It's like it's perfect, right? I was of course prepared for not being, you know, not succeeding with the takedown so quickly, or having to improvise and do other stuff. We always have a plan B and C. But like it feels great also because I think that was mentioned before. I didn't start fighting until, you know, I was in my 30s, and I know I'm not going to have a long career. I might have a great career, but it's not going to be super long. So I want to make the most of my fights and without any damage. So I was really happy about that as well. That was one of the main things for me. Yes, I could start, you know, doing something more fun, more have more blood or things like that people love to watch. But I'm really happy that I got the finish, and I got it with no damage at all.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to ask you about, because you said you don't feel like you're going to have a long career. Like, you kind of started later, right? As far
Yeah.
as getting into MMA. So having known that, do you feel like if you're wanting to get maybe to where maybe you want to go, do you feel like I gotta do it quickly?
No, I mean, no, it's not like I'm not gonna have a long career at all. But it's not gonna be super long. I'm not gonna fight for the next 20 years. That's a fact. I'm 35, so maybe 20 years are achievable. Yes, let's see. But for now, how I can make up for the time that I didn't fight in my 20s, having more fights. And how do I have more fights? Being healthy and not getting injured. So for me, that's on top of winning the fight, I have that in the back of my mind as well. I want to be healthy and I want to finish the safest possible way for me.
Now, as far as your next fight goes, do you have like a certain amount of fights that you're booked for enduro, or can you fight anywhere?
Not really. I can actually fight anywhere. I don't have a contract or anything binding me to fight or preventing me to fight for the promotions. And like I mentioned before, it was already quite hard for me to find a fight before IMMAF. So I'm open to whatever opportunities come after this.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So you already know ahead of time you were having a hard time getting fights before. So you kind of thinking I might have to look outside of Australia for the next one.
That's also a possibility. As you know, Australia is like quite far and hard to get, fights because like it's not a massive population in this country. So if you compare with Europe, you have like so many countries that are like 2 hours flight away, and I'm not, depending on the direction I fly 2 hours, I'm still in the same state. So it does make a difference, and that's all obviously a possibility. On top of that, I want to grow in the career, so I will have to fight internationally, and yeah, it's something I'm looking forward to.
Well, I mean, like UFC's coming to Sydney. If they called you, would you do it?
Yeah, I mean, well, of course I would.
You would.
Yeah.
Because it's not unheard of, like when they need somebody that they might, reach out to you. So that's something you would do if they asked you to.
Yes, is that how many weeks? 5 weeks from now? Yes, I'm gonna be on weight, just to be safe.
Now, I want to ask you kind of about, we talked about the fight, but I kind of want to ask you, like, when you came to Australia and you kind of got into, I know you got into training quickly because I watched some of your other interviews. You said like maybe a week after. When you got to Australia, you were already thinking, I'm gonna do MMA.
Not really. I had like maybe down 6 months or not even a year of jiu-jitsu in Brazil before I moved to Australia. And then I was just looking for a jiu-jitsu gym, which I trained for a year or so. And then I moved to another part of the city, and I started training in this gym that had MMA. And I would go from work to the gym and maybe wait over an hour for the jiu-jitsu class to start. So I started doing Muay Thai, and then I started doing the boxing classes and the wrestling classes. Eventually I was like, okay, what if we put everything together and join the MMA classes? But I didn't think about competing until quite a few years doing that, to be honest, at least 3 or 4.
Now, have all your fights been with Renato Subotic or no?
Yes.
So you kind of started fighting when you started training with him.
Yes, I had a couple fights booked previously, but they were canceled due to COVID. We had 2 big lockdowns in Sydney. So one fight was like in the agreements stage first, and the first lockdown came, and then a year later, doing the whole process again, going back to training, getting excited. I had a fight that there was a schedule. We had everything ready, set up, and the second lockdown came on my fight week. So those were the previous fights that didn't happen, and I was still training in a different gym. And then after this lockdown, I started training, like doing some sparring classes with Renato. He mentioned there was like a spot in the Australian team for IMMAF in 2021, and I joined.
Now that's interesting. So, because I was about to ask you that, how does somebody get into IMMAF? So in your case, he just said, "We have a spot. Do you want it?"
Yes, that was pretty much it. So after having like this long wait for my first fight, it took me over 2 years to get my first fight, and it was canceled again. So I decided, yes, why not? I'm gonna join. It didn't go very well though, but it was a great experience.
But he must have had some influence to be able to get you in that because it's a big amount of competitors, right?
Oh yes, he is one of the Australian coaches for what was previously called IMMAF A. So that's how he could, refer someone for the team, right? Because it was like I think someone made the position vacant, like they didn't follow through, and they are not going to the world. So he was like, he saw me training quite a few times. We did quite a few sessions before that, and he was like, if you want to go, I can get into the team, and that's how it happened. But normally you have like trials, you have like Oceania, which I did last year to get the 2022 position. So it takes normally longer, yeah, but if someone doesn't fill the spot, yeah, it's up there.
So it's interesting. So you're like your average person has to work up almost like similar to Abu Dhabi. They have to qualify.
Yeah.
Now, when you won in 2022, kind of take me through that a little bit. Maybe like just you don't have to take me through all the fights, but maybe like the overall experience of, you know, going to Serbia, winning.
Okay. I think for me, the main thing was like getting ready for having so many rounds and being able to be like on weight every day. That was like my main concern. I try not to think too much about the fight, especially like in a tournament format, because you don't know who are you gonna get. So dieting, training consistently, this type of stuff. And I did have to diet quite a bit. So which improved my cardio as well. So it was not a bad thing, obviously. The fights, I did like I said, like I do care a lot about damage, especially on IMMAF, because being there the year before, I saw many people that they won their fights and they didn't qualify to fight the day after. So we also had that in mind, that to not take damage, to not take any damage if possible. So that was one of my on the things that like on our game plan and mindset, to avoid that, to not get too excited, even though obviously I did sometimes. What else I can mention about the experience there? It's very, very heavy on your body to have 4 fights in a week. I still look back and I barely believe that I did it. I know, no, I only believe because it was me. But I like, how did I do this? How did I keep my weight so low? And waking up the next day, I was not feeling nervous, but my body was in such a physical stress that I was sleeping like 1 or 2 hours per night, and I was still performing the day after. I reckon maybe the adrenaline was making up for that, but it was like that bad. My sleep was horrible. Fight week, a couple weeks before as well, because I was in a calorie deficit that was quite intense, but it had to be done, otherwise I wouldn't make weight. And I think one of the best parts was before the final, they have the youth final. So I had 1 day break. And that day it was like, oh, I can eat a bit more, I can sleep a bit more. And it was like, it made such a massive difference, because like in the final, it was like was my best day, and I performed much better, and I finished the fight. So I was like, oh, finally finished one of my fights. The other thing as well is, even though I was not sleeping very well, I was like, probably I never felt like so happy in my life. After the second fight, I was like, I want to fight every day. That's so good. And I was so excited. So there was this thing that I was like, I don't even care about the result. I just want to go and get there, because like that's the best thing ever. And yeah, that was my experience. It was really, really positive in many aspects, and showed me so much about myself, or what I could do, things that I couldn't believe I could do. And yeah, I'm really grateful that I gave another shot.
In hindsight, looking back on it, if someone else was to do this, what would you tell them from your experience?
Obviously, to enjoy the process, to believe in yourself more than anything, and to put yourself out there. Like, it's still amateur. You're there to learn in the first place. Like, don't be too hard on yourself if you don't get the result that you don't get the result that you wanna. But yeah, just do it, because it takes a lot. It takes a lot to even be like, to be able to even get there, to step into a cage in the first place, right? So I would definitely recommend, but yeah, you have to take it seriously on the other side, because it's going to be the most excruciating experience of your life on the other hand. But it feels great, like when you achieve something that is so big, and you look back at all the commitment, all the training partners, and coaches, family members, friends, they were supporting you. And yeah, it's just amazing. It's overwhelming. Yeah.
But I mean, the day to day, like you were talking about what your body went through, the little sleep you were getting. Is there anything you could have done differently looking back on it?
Look, I was trying my best actually to sleep. I was going to bed early. I was really trying to, but my body would not respond to that. I definitely, after that experience and preparing for my last fight, I did commit even harder with like my sleeping pattern, and it was amazing. It really helped with my recovery, but also I didn't have to cut as much weight as I did previously, because like I had many things, many injuries last year, so I had to recover. I didn't train as much, so for me it was a harder cut to go to the roads. This year was like super easy. So I don't think I had the physical stress that I had for IMMAF.
Now, let me ask you about this, because like I said, I'm not too familiar with IMMAF. When you go there, like, I know this is a big organization now. Is it run like really professionally? And, when you go there, is it like a big professionally run situation?
Yes. The camera set up, when you have those big canoes that they are warm, and they are all, it looks like, oh, am I in the UFC? It's this type of experience. Like, the stadium is beautifully organized. Like, you have like the best cut men and cut women in the world. The referees as well. Like, oh, I seen this person like in this fight, and yeah, everything seems to be like very professional. Yeah, what can I say? Yeah, it's much bigger than the shows that I have been here in Australia as well. They have like 3-4 cages, 5 cages maybe. Yeah, it's.
Now, what do you think? Like, how soon do you think you want to fight again, if it was up to you?
It's up to me. I would like to have like 8 weeks notice, something like that. So I would say maybe 6, because I'm not injured and I'm still healthy. But it's always good to bulk up a little bit before you cut again. So I would say 8 weeks would be ideal, but I'm ready to fight now, you know.
Now, I want to ask you a little bit about your development, in jiu-jitsu. I know you haven't trained long, but you've already won, a championship in IMMAF. For someone who hasn't trained long, why did you develop so quickly, you think?
Because I train every day. At the end of the day, I have been training jiu-jitsu for like 9 years now, and Muay Thai for probably like 6 years, and some boxing and wrestling sometime in between as well. So it is okay. I don't have a decade yet, but it's not like I didn't start training like last year or during the lockdown. It's some considerable amount of time. And it has always been consistent. Like even during the lockdowns, I was still like training like taekwondo kicks in the park and things like that. So I never stopped. Like unless the days that I was sick or something like that, I never stopped training since I started, since day one. So I think that consistency helped me a lot. I don't think I have any special talent in terms of being coordinated. Never been. I'm from a family of musicians. I was the one who was never being able to play anything. It's just training every day, training hard, and committing to it. Because even as an amateur, I always took it very seriously. If I was going to a competition, I wanted to give my best to eat. I'm not like I would never go there and just like I would see what happens. No, I would train the things that I wanted to do. I would plan what even if it didn't work fine, but I would like to go there with a plan, with a goal, and work to be my best version on the day.
Now, I want to ask you like, what are some things for somebody, like things that we haven't covered in this interview that you think are important? There's something that you want to leave this interview on that you think is important to tell other people?
A lot of people, they ask me why I do this, why I spend so much time. Like I basically every day I finish work, I go straight to the gym or even train in the mornings. Like why I spend all my free time on this, right? And for me, I think before I start doing I start having any type of exercise or sports in my life, I actually was kind of lost and I didn't know what to do. I always had to do with depression, and that's one thing that it obviously doesn't cure, but it makes such a positive effect in your life. And having that routine as well is something that keeps me grounded. The friends that you make as well. So it's something that is definitely going to have such a bigger impact in your life that you cannot even imagine. And that's why I keep doing it, because I can't imagine my life without it anymore.
And that's something where, kind of like you can use fighting as a platform to maybe help other people with things you've gone through, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, if you can help one person is already, a great thing. So imagine if you can multiply that effect. That's one of those things that, like, I spend so much time in this, so why not give something back?
Now, I do want to ask one more thing I just thought about, which is I know that lockdowns in Australia were very, very strict.
Yes.
How did you get around that as far as training work? What did you do?
So there were stages. So first, you couldn't go to the gym at all. But then you were allowed to exercise outdoors. You were allowed to exercise with household members. And then you're allowed to have up to, 4 people or 6 people outdoors. So one of my coaches was training us, like, doing like on 2 sessions, 104 sessions, because the gym, yes, that was closed. And that was one way that we got active, especially during the second lockdown. That was actually the longest in Sydney. And that was like late 2021, mid to late 2021.
Now, when you couldn't leave or you couldn't train with anyone, what did you do?
I started running again, which I do like, especially if the scenery is enjoyable, the weather is good. My knees not so much, especially if I do 3-4 times a week. So I start running. I also start roller skating. I used to have roller blades when I was a kid, but I never have tried roller skating. It was actually a funny story because I have bunions on my feet, so that's one of the reasons why I do sports on the mats as well, because it doesn't hurt. And many shoes are horrible for me. So what I did is, because I couldn't find any roller skates that wouldn't hurt my feet, they have those solid and very hard material boots. I grabbed one of my boxing boots and I attach it in the roller skate, the metal platform and the wheels, and I customize one for myself. So that was my lockdown project.
How did you do that?
You can buy the parts separately. So they sell a roller skate as an entire product, but you can buy the boots and you can buy the beading, the wheels, everything separated. So I use my boxing boots because they're comfy, they were wide, they fit my feet perfectly, and then I built from there.
Like, did you use some sort of adhesive, or how did you attach it to the boot?
Screwdrivers.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and then yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, as we're kind of winding the interview down, I wanted to maybe you could let people know where they could find you if people wanted to get interested in what you're doing and things like that. Maybe if they wanted to support you or sponsor you.
You can currently find me at Mesquita _MMA, Mesquita _MMA on Instagram. I don't have many other social medias that are public out there. I used to be a very private person myself before I start fighting. But you can contact me, reach me out from there, and we take from there. What else? I'm also now known as X, formerly Twitter, as Faine, just my first name. But I don't use much, but it's another way. If you contact me, I'm going to see a message coming over. So those are the ways for the time being.
And could people sponsor you if they wanted to?
You can reach out to, I would probably say those 2 ways. I have an email as well, but I don't want to share it at this point because I want to create a separate account only for that, for security reasons. So.
Okay. Well, Faine, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me, and yeah, I look forward to following you, and learning more, seeing you as you get more fights and develop more. And I just appreciate you taking the time so much to talk to me about your fights and everything.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate having someone all the way from the other side of the world. Hope you're having a good summer over there. And yes, I will stay tuned. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I look forward to talking to you again sometime.
Yeah. Likewise, thank you.
And everyone who watched this, thank you for the support. And until next time, take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.